and gentlemen, we're Team 3. I'm Josh Ames.
Hi, I'm Sadie Conrad.
I'm Jason Constantoris.
And I'm Hannah Stewart.
And we're here today to talk to you about your agency becoming a trusted leader in e-waste recycling. This is our agenda for today. Just going to run through it really quick. First, we're going to frame the issue for you. Then we're going to talk about the market size. We're going to do some revenue forecasting. We're going to show you our business model, and then we're going to have a question and answer session. Our three main goals at the core of our proposal are to develop an e-waste program that generates revenue, promote a public image that reflects the agency's sustainability goals, and strengthen business partnerships. And our focus is to serve as an intermediary between customers and recycling centers. And we're focusing also on residential customers as opposed to commercial customers.
Oops, sorry. There we go. So first we want to look at the market in general and what's actually happening in the environment. We believe there's a lot of potential for your agency to really get into this market. Currently, globally, recycling centers only receive about 1% of cell phones. And in the United States, the recycling system is really fragmented and a lot gets lost. Part of this is because there really isn't a trusted leader. So when I go to buy a new cell phone or a new computer, oftentimes it just sits at home because I don't know who to turn it into. I don't want it to end up in the waste or at the landfill, but it's a lot of effort for you as a consumer to really start thinking about who am I going to send this to, and am I going to trust them to actually do what they say they're going to do with it. So across the nation in lots of different states, there's a lot of e-waste laws that are being enacted requiring manufacturers to actually start developing programs. Now this is really cumbersome. First of all, they don't have the infrastructure to be able to do this. And also it really hits their net revenue as well. If they can think of an easy way to get their e-waste products out, we really feel like we'd be able to get in there and build those partnerships. And also to really just help with the fact that recycling right now is really ambiguous. Customers don't know where it goes. So if your agency can step up as a leader and say, we're going to take care of this for you and we're going to make sure that your products get recycled, you're going to build really good partnerships with the industry and with consumers.
Okay, great. So the next couple slides address the issue of market potential and lay out some of the figures that we'll end up using to help forecast what the revenues will be for this program. So the first table just shows residential sales of electronic devices by device for the last 2 decades. And the important takeaway from this table is the trend. We see the trend for mobile devices is very positive and increasing, not so much for laptops and desktops. There we go. This next table just breaks down 2012 sales by device. And the important takeaway here is that the vast majority of residential devices sold are cell phones. And of cell phones, the vast majority of cell phones that are sold are residential, or to residential households rather than commercial businesses. So this table right here shows the total electronic mass recycled in 2012. And so the takeaway here is really that we think that even though there are services currently to recycle goods, there's a lot of potential for your agency to start entering into this market. And this next slide actually really shows that. We see that in all end-of-life management programs for electronic devices, the majority for each device, especially cell phones and laptop, well, all three, are recycled. And this tells us that there's still a lot of potential for your agency to enter into this e-recycling market. So the first thing we sought out to do was to forecast residential sales for each device for the next 5 years. The axis on the bottom there is year, 2013, 2014. And the important takeaway here, again, is that the trend, we project that the trend will continue. There will be a very large increase in cell phones and relatively not as large an increase, or in some cases a decrease, for desktops and laptops.
So the question you're probably asking is, how much money are we actually going to make from recycling e-waste? And so realistically, you're probably not going to get a lot of high-end cell phones. There's already a lot of competition for that. You can go to your provider and trade in phones. There's other people that pay. But really where the market is lacking is what do you do with those older phones that aren't worth a lot of money, but you can recycle them and get a lot of precious metals. And so looking at general average market data, you get about 66 cents per cell phone. But you get about $6 per computer and laptop for all the metals that you extract from it. And so we really feel like focusing on making it easy for people to get rid of their e-waste, and the volume that you get from that is really where your niche market is going to be. And the reason we decided to focus on recycling versus reselling is just looking at the environment. That is where the national agenda is moving. That's where consumers are moving. They want to know that their cell phone, computer, laptop is going to be recycled rather than ending up in some landfill in Africa or being refurbished and resold. And so projected revenues. We anticipate being able to capture about 5% of the market for desktops. And I realize, and 5% for laptops and about 3% for cell phones. Now I realize these numbers probably don't wow you right away. We want to be conservative and realistically be able to project how much of the market you're going to take initially. And so even though this isn't really a huge revenue generating source initially, there's a lot of room to grow, especially as your name gets out there as a trusted resource for people. And so one of the most important things to note though is that this program is revenue generating. So I know it's not huge, it's not going to solve the agency's financial problems, but it's going to be able to create a program that has potential to grow.
So to speak a little more about the program and the process itself, we realize again that this is a new endeavor for your agency. However, we believe it will be positively received by the public at large. Your agency is trusted, well-established, brand name recognition across the country. And key here is, again, as Sadie has been talking about, transparency. Where are these cell phones and old electronic devices, where are they going to go after they've been deposited with our agency? And people can believe, based on our reputation and brand, that they will be responsibly recycled. Okay, so to discuss a little more about the process. We foresee 3 main avenues to collect these devices. First, they can be mailed in. So in order to facilitate this, your agency will provide envelopes and boxes depending on the size of the device. We're assuming that there is a smartphone application in use right now based on what the competitors are doing, the size of your agency and how established it is. So being able to request this box or envelope via the smartphone application, online, or even in store if that's something you would like or the customer would like to pursue. Also, there can be a drop-off point within one of the thousands of retail locations your agency already has around the country, so people can just drop off their cell phone, leave their laptop. And again, going back to the first point, dropped in the mail, that's already a part of what your agency does in terms of going to people's homes on a daily basis, picking up, dropping off. So, and the third one is dropped at a retail partner location. Right now, there's different organizations, Best Buy, Staples, that are known for collecting these used devices, but there's other large organizations like Walmart and Costco that do not do that. So there's room to partner with them. So from these 3 locations, the next step would be sending the devices to a regional sorting facility, which your agency has around the country again. And from there, they'd be sent to a recycling center that your agency will have a negotiated contract with. And that's where the revenue is going to be generated. And in this process, the report to manufacturers, we see that as another avenue for revenue for your agency, because in the process of sorting and looking at the different devices in the sorting facility, sorting out cell phones, computers, there's the opportunity to report what devices are there. So how many Nokia phones, how many Samsung, and reporting that back to the manufacturer. So creating contracts with the manufacturers. So again, partnership with manufacturers, the incentive to the manufacturer to partner with your agency is that it's easy compliance with new legislation. The new legislation that's coming out, more than 24 states already have adopted the regulations that state manufacturers need to dispose of the devices responsibly. So your agency can serve as the middleman for that function. And again, the reporting capacity. So again, I mentioned partnership with retailers. There's public positive publicity for the agency and both the company. So goes to the green sustainability effort.
Ladies and gentlemen, as with everything, there are challenges involved and risks. The one main challenge that we see is transforming the organizational culture to prioritize the green sustainability efforts. And the two main risks that we see are the public underutilizing the program, and also the phone manufacturers not playing ball and coming on board. With these challenges and risks in mind, though, ultimately our vision is to keep it free, keep it easy for the customers, and become a trusted business leader in the e-waste recycling. And you're investing in the agency's green future. And these are really the three main takeaways that we have. So, pending your questions, this concludes our presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very good. I have a question. Sorry. So first of all, very good. You list the key challenge as getting the corporate culture to realize the green potential. But your business model, which I thought was very good, almost is our normal business model. Drop it in the mail, you pick it up at a center. So what would be the rationale for that being such a challenge when maybe any of our people would just see it as another piece of mail that they're putting through the process? What would dictate that as a main challenge area?
So it'd actually just be the partnerships with the recycling centers and maybe prioritizing that and trying to grow it. So we actually think that most employees would probably really like this program. They've shown in other research that when your company is sustainable and cares about the environment, it actually builds people's confidence in the company and enjoyment in the workplace. So I actually feel like it's the culture of people. People would buy into this program really well, but maybe just taking it to the next level and prioritizing that at sort of a macro level would need a little bit more support.
One of the other points on that question, it's a very good question, is we're not proposing that you add any more employees. So at these regional sorting centers, that is it's kind of you're operating within the same budget that you already have. So you're asking them to do a little bit more with the same amount of money. So that's part of it.
I had a question. Something that you said about old cell phones being sort of the target rather than the newer high-end cell phones. Could you just say a little bit more about that?
Sure. So realistically speaking, there's a lot of competition for new phones. So if I'm upgrading my Apple 4, I can turn it into Verizon to get a cheaper phone. And so they're already collecting that. Or other third parties will offer you like $65 for your new cell phone. So trying to get your agency into that market, there's a lot more competition, and it's going to be hard to actually get that. From both a data standpoint and just from personal experience, people tend to but keep cell phones that aren't very valuable to them, and they don't know what to do with them. And so there's a large market of that out there. And so so even though we're targeting sort of lower value cell phones, we think the volume's going to be higher.
But do you think, just as a follow-up question, do you think that that's, if the focus is on sort of the older, junkier flip phones, is that sustainable 5 years from now when presumably they'll have been recycled and taken care of?
True. That's definitely a very good question. I think initially that's going to be your focus, and it's going to have to adopt and change as it goes on. And as you become more of a well-known source for people, I think you can start getting into that competitive market for higher-end cell phones. But starting out, that's going to be very difficult to do.
We see a high turnover with people purchasing new phones every few years. And so within a couple years, though, your phone might be cracked. It might be, a little bit worn out. The battery life isn't so good. So you're not looking to sell it on Craigslist. You're not looking to find another third-party vendor. So even after a couple of years, these phones are wearing out. So I do see this as well as, there is this high turnover.
So you talked about you made some growth projections around 3% of the market, et cetera. Would you envision that that as this would grow, would you be proposing the same business model to gain scale, or will the business model need to change if we're going to gain scale? So does this only get us to a certain point, or is this an extrapolation straight through?
I think because of the mass infrastructure that you already have, it is a sustainable business model at almost any scale. We were talking about within cities, this room may become an issue, but the majority, and we're talking maybe New York City and Chicago and some of the larger cities, LA. that might become a problem, but everywhere else, we will adjust fire accordingly.
And actually, as you grow, I think it's going to solidify this model because you're going to have those contracts with the manufacturers, you're going to have contracts with recycling centers. So even though you increase your scale, the business model is really solid.
I think Matt actually correctly identified the major sustainability issue, which is moving from the older technology to moving towards newer technology. I think that's going to be one of the bigger challenges, and we think that our business model is able to actually address that issue.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.